Hey gang, and welcome back. Just a reminder, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com. You'll get 10% off orders over $10 and help with the channel at the same time. So apparently people don't consider that evil Adam sitting off screen is him in a game, so in this week's episode, he joins us at the table. Armin is playing his Maelstrom Wanderer deck, and he keeps a hand with Forest, Frontier Bivouac, Nature's Lore, Wall of Blossoms, Soul Ring, Coalition Relic, and Birthing Pod. Eric is playing his Experiment Kraj deck and keeps a hand with Fathom Mage, Shapers of Nature, Pilipala, Birds of Paradise, Novagen Heart of Progress, a Forest, and an Island. Evil Adam, to the surprise of no one, is playing Derevi and keeps a hand with Mana Confluence, Noble Hierarch, Academy Rector, One Plains, True Conviction, Eldritch Evolution, and Azami, Lady of Scrolls. Lastly, Jason is playing his Lazav deck and keeps a hand with Hostage Taker, Limdol's Vault, Polluted Delta, Phyrexian Tower, Demonic Tutor, an Island, and Windfall. Adam wins the die roll and starts us off. Adam plays a Mana Confluence for his land for turn, and taps it to take 1 for a green mana and casts Noble Hierarch. Jason plays a Polluted Delta for his turn and passes. Armin plays a tapped Frontier Bivouac and passes to Eric. Eric plays a Forest on his Invisible playmat and casts Birds of Paradise. Jason cracks his Polluted Delta at the end of Eric's turn to find a Watery Grave. Adam plays a Plains and avoids tapping his Mana Confluence to cast 3 Visits, finding a Breeding Pool. Jason draws for turn and plays an Island before passing. Armin plays a Forest and taps it to cast a Soul Ring. He then taps his land and artifact to cast Nature's Lore to find a Taiga. With the 1 floating mana, and by tapping his Taiga, Armin then casts Wall of Blossoms, drawing a card and passing turn. For Eric's turn, he plays an Island and pays 3 to cast Shapers of Nature. He then passes to Adam. Adam plays a land for turn, Diamond Valley, and brings out Derevi. He uses the Bird Wizard's Enter the Battlefield trigger to untap his Noble Hierarch, and with the trigger on the stack, Jason casts Limdol's Vault. Jason double checks what the card does, but is content with the top 5 and reorders them and puts them back on top. Adam then taps the Noble Hierarch to play Serra Ascendant and passes turn. Jason plays an Underground Sea for his land for turn, reminding me that I'll never be able to afford one, and casts Demonic Tutor. He finds a card and casts it, dropping Mystic Remora onto the battlefield. Armin plays a Tropical Island for his turn and pays 3 mana and 2 life to cast Birthing Pod. As he doesn't pay the extra 4, Jason gets to draw a card thanks to Mystic Remora. Armin then pays a further 2 life and 1 mana to pot away his wall and finds an Animar. Armin isn't done with his turn, and he drops Coiling Oracle, who gives Animar a +1/+1 counter on cast, before he reveals Garruk Primal Hunter off the top and puts it into his hand. Eric's turn is pretty quick, and he plays Novagen as his land for turn, and pays 4 mana to cast a Fathom Mage and passes turn. Adam has no land for turn, and instead has to settle for a mediocre creature like Academy Rector. He then moves to combat, swinging everything he can at Armin. Adam then uses the untrap triggers on Serra Ascendant and the Noble Hierarch, and with nothing else, he passes turn. Jason pays 1 on his upkeep for the cumulative upkeep of Mystic Remora, and draws for turn. He then plays a Swamp and passes turn. Armin plays a Mountain for his turn, and moves straight to cast the Maelstrom Wanderer. His first Cascade hits Palinchron, and his second hits the Body Double, who unfortunately has no choice but to enter as a Wall of Blossoms. This lets Armin draw, untap 7 of his lands, and gives Animar 2 +1/+1 counters. Armin then casts Zealous Conscripts, targeting Adam's Academy Rector. With the targeting trigger on the stack, Adam responds by sacrificing the Rector to his Diamond Valley, gaining 2 life and exiling the creature to cheat an enchantment. Adam grabs out his copy of Sylvan Library as he's stuck with his True Conviction in hand. Armin then casts Duplicant and exiles Adam's Ascendant. Armin then sacrifices the Zealous Conscript to Birthing Pod, taking 2 damage and paying only 1 mana to find Pathbreaker Ebek, a card I've never actually seen in action. Armin then moves to combat and gets some payback, swinging everything at Adam. All of Armin's creatures get pumped by Pathbreaker Ebek, gaining +7/+7, and Adam dies in combat. Eric plays a Forest for his turn and casts a Murkfiend Liege. This triggers the Fathom Mage's Evolve, giving it a +1/+1 counter and letting Eric draw a card. Moving to combat, Eric swings a Fathom Mage and Shaper at Armin, and both of his creatures get pumped by +2/+2 thanks to the Liege, dealing 9 damage. Eric untaps his creatures on Jason's untap step, and Jason decides to bin the Mystic Remora after not paying the upkeep cost. Jason then draws and plays a Swamp for turn, before wiping the slate clean with a Damnation. Having done his fair share, Jason passes turn. Armin plays an island for his turn and pays 3 to cast Coalition Relic. He then casts Jane's the Mind Sculptor and brainstorms for the Walker's 0-cost ability. Eric untaps for his turn and plays an island in his main phase. He then casts a Thornling and passes turn. Jason plays a Drowned Catacomb for turn and casts Lazav while Adam explains to me how he was blown up by Armin. Armin activates Jace's 0-cost ability in his first main phase, Brainstorming. He then plays a Sulphur Falls, and with enough mana to recast his commander, Armin does just that. His first Cascade hits a Gilded Lotus, and his second finds Armin a Reclamation Sage. He doesn't blow anything up with the Sage though, as he only has targets for himself. He instead taps his Lotus to pay for Birthing Pod's cost, sacrificing the Elf to go and find Sower of Temptation, stealing Eric's Thornling. Moving to combat, Armin swings everything at Jason for 13 damage, and passes to Eric. Eric plays a Forest for his turn, and Big Daddy Slime, Experiment Kraj, hits the streets. With nothing else, Eric passes turn. Jason plays a Phyrexian Tower for his land for turn, and uses his ability to sacrifice Lazav for 2 black mana. He then pays the rest for Hostage Taker, and exiles the Sower of Temptation. Jason then pays 4 mana to cast the stolen/exiled copy of the Fairy, and steals Armin's Maelstrom Wanderer. Jason then moves to combat, as all his creatures now have haste thanks to the Wanderer, and takes out Jace. Armin untaps for his turn, and pays 4 mana to cast a Bloodbraid Elf. He cascades, revealing 2 lands and a card with a higher converted mana cost than the elf, until he hits a Krosan Grip. With no good targets other than his own stuff once more, Armin decides to put it on the bottom with the rest of the cards revealed. Armin then casts a Consecrated Sphinx, and moving to combat, hits Jason with the elf. With nothing else, he passes turn. Eric draws for turn, and Armin draws 2. Eric then plays an island, and swings a Thornling at Armin. Armin doesn't want to lose his Sphinx, and declares no blocks. Eric has things to do other than pump his Thornling, and in his second main phase, Eric drops a Gaia's Herald. With nothing else, Eric passes turn. Jason untaps for his turn and draws, and Armin draws 2. In his first main phase, he sacrifices the Hostage Taker to the Phyrexian Tower for 2 black mana. He uses this mana and 4 more to recast Lazav. Jason then plays a Tainted Isle and proceeds to cast Windfall. Everyone discards their hand, drawing 6, with Armin having the chance to draw an additional 24 cards thanks to the Sphinx. Jason has Lazav become a copy of Armin's discarded Kiki-Jiki, and Armin draws a good chunk of cards. Jason then taps the Lazav Kiki-Jiki to create another copy of Sower of Temptation. He steals Armin's Sphinx and swings everything at Armin to take him out. Eric untaps for turn, and Armin is pretty impressed with the sequence of play that Jason followed to take him out. Eric then plays a Forest and casts a Zamek Guildmage before paying a further 3 mana to cast Wood Elves. He finds a Forest from the Enter the Battlefield trigger. He then activates the Novagen to give the Guildmage and the Wood Elves a +1/+1 counter. Moving to combat, Eric swings the Experiment Kraj and Thornling at Jason for 8 damage. Jason starts his turn off right with a Body Double, and Eric reveals the choices from his graveyard while Armin kicks the tripod. Jason decides to have the Body Double be a copy of the Hostage Taker in his graveyard, and exiles Experiment Kraj. Eric then has his commander go to the command zone. Jason then taps the Kiki-Jiki Lazav to create a copy of the Body Double, which he has come in as copy of Hostage Taker once more. This exiles Thornling. Jason isn't done though, and he casts Animate Dead to bring back the original Hostage Taker, exiling the Zamek Guildmage. Moving to combat, the only creature that has haste though is Jason's copy of the Hostage Taker he made with Kiki-Jiki Lazav, which he didn't do a great job of marking. He swings it at Eric for 2. Moving to Jason's end step, the token copy of Hostage Taker is exiled, and Eric regains his Thornling. Eric drops an island for his turn and swings the Thornling at Jason. Jason chumps with the Body Double, who's copying Hostage Taker. In his second main phase, Eric recasts his general and passes to Jason. Jason plays an island for his turn and pays 4 to cast Clever Impersonator. He has it come into play as a copy of the Hostage Taker, and exiles Experiment Kraj once more. Jason then taps the Kiki-Jiki Lazav and creates a token copy of the Hostage Taker, only with haste, and exiles the Thornling. Jason then casts the Stolen Thornling and swings once more at Eric with the invisible but 2-powered token copy of Hostage Taker. Eric pays 4 in his main phase to cast Solemn Simulacrum and finds an island. Eric then casts what I think is a Trigon Predator and activates Novagen to give the Solemn and a Flyer a +1/+1 counter. Jason plays a Temple of Deceit, scrying for 1 and keeps it on top. He then taps Lazav to create another Hostage Taker token, stealing Solemn and casts it. Jason then swings the token and Thornling at Eric, who doesn't block and takes 6. Jason then casts Cryptoplasm in his second main phase and passes turn. Eric draws for turn, and with no way to deal with Jason's multiple Hostage Takers upturn, scoops it up. Game review time. So, Armin did a really good job of taking out Adam early on, but unfortunately he left himself kind of open for everyone else to beat him up afterwards. It's really hard to say whether or not it was the right move, as oftentimes if you don't take Adam out, he'll pretty much win the game. That being said, he did seem to be a bit land-starved, and his only good creature seemed to be Serra Ascendant. I want to say it's really a shame that Evil Adam wasn't able to get anywhere with his Derevi deck, but he's won so many times at this point with it, I really don't feel that much sympathy. He kept a bit of a greedy hand, and that's what happens in EDH sometimes. It's kind of a shame that Eric's Experiment Kraj deck didn't really get to do anything with Experiment Kraj, as it kept getting exiled by Hostage Taker. I would have been really interested to see what it can do, as I like the idea that he's able to gain so many activated abilities, and at the same time pump up his own creatures. Speaking of Hostage Taker, I knew the card was really strong in Standard, but holy cow, Jason was able to do it at least like 8 times in this game, and that's insane. As I said in the last game, I don't typically advocate for scooping, but in this case I think it's justified. Eric was casting creatures every turn, which in turn were also getting stolen by Jason, and then he cast them for his own benefit. As a result, Eric was quickly getting nowhere and really needed a board wipe or some way to bounce all of Jason's creatures back to his hand, but he wasn't drawing them, and it was pretty much an inevitability at this point for Jason to win. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in part by support from my Patreons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit my Patreon link below. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.